Well, here we go. This is my first time doing this, and my name's Zachary Neff, and I'm here with my good buddy Luca Delatri. And welcome to our podcast. We're gonna call it the Dive, exploring deeper to aim higher. It is our aim is for it to be an extension of our already conversations that we are already having on a weekly, even daily basis at times. So our paths have crossed in a very unique way, and I'm very blessed for us to meet about a couple years ago, and I'm gonna have turn it over to Luca here so he can kind of get us started on where we met, how we started, and where this journey is going to take us from there.
No, I appreciate the idea of doing this. I think we've done this for so long. Just doing what we're, actually doing right now, recording wise. We've done it behind the scenes, as if you wanted to say, conversation after conversation about issues going on in our lives, and we're helping each other through things. And I feel like we can our things that we talk about, everything that we work on with each other, within ourselves. I feel like people can actually get something out of. So I appreciate you taking the onus upon yourself to start this and get this going and doing all the work you did to get it going. So appreciate that. I'm excited to actually get going. Um, but yeah, in terms of where we first met, um, yeah, I we met last summer, or I guess more so the spring, when I signed with the Twins. I uh, I met you when you were in rehab, and then it just started. I actually left you for a little bit. I know you were pretty upset for about a month and a half after I left. But then I came back. You can't stay away from rehab once you get there, and and the rest is history. We're here now. So,
So, I mean, to take us a little or deeper into that is we were in the locker room and Luca's sitting there, and I've never seen this guy before in my life, and I'm sitting in my locker getting changed. It's towards the end of my day at rehab, so mid afternoon, and he looks at me, he goes, "Yo, you think they care if we wear headphones?" And I was like, "Dude, do whatever you want." And he was like, "Sweet." And so we went our separate ways, and I don't know, there's a community center down there in the cafeteria, and we just started eating, and I don't know, that night or maybe a day later we dove into some really deep stuff, or some stuff that, aren't they're not easy questions to ask, so to speak. So that is like the extension. That is the start of like our Luca and I relationship, and we just want to welcome you guys into that. And like that is the beginning of our story. And rehab was a tough time for me too. So like that's kind of where my growing journey started as well, as far as self-development, self-growth, and that's kind of our theme behind this whole podcast. So we can I'll start by asking Luca, like, how do you define your personal growth?
uh, um, I mean, these things we've talked about. I think everyone's personal growth is arbitrary. The term growth, obviously, you'd imagine is an upward seeking term, obviously. But I think since everyone starts in a different place, I feel like it is different for everybody, of course. But really, what matters is what you're seeking, what you're actually striving forward to. And if you truly can say that you have that solidified in your mind, what it is you're looking for and what you're seeking, um, just start your journey. Uh, then it's just a matter of figuring out if what you're seeking is true, seeking out what's true, what's good, and what's the highest purpose. And I believe if your intentions are pure, like you'll figure those questions out. No one has the answers. So, what
So,
growth looks like, it's a constant thing. It's every single day. And if you're doing it right, you're constantly progressing in the right direction. If you're not, you'll feel it and you'll know things need to change. So, I mean, what does it look like for you? Like when you started, like what triggered it, and how did you know that you were on the right path?
well, at the time I started it, I don't know if I knew that I was on the right path to answer that question, but what triggered it was definitely like Tommy John surgery and rehab. Um, just the accountability piece. Whereas like my previous years before 2022 and like in baseball, like I wouldn't say that I held myself accountable to the standard that I'm achieving or attempting to now, as far as diet, as far as working out, as far as waking up, reading, like the word, all kinds of things, and like just the discipline that it takes to move up in that aspect of my life. So, like, when I was going through rehab or at the end of rehab, people were asking me what it was like, and I was like, Tommy John was probably the best thing that ever happened to me as far as the trajectory of my life. And I would just define personal growth as the ability to accept failure, step away from the emotion of that failure, learn from those mistakes, and be prepared to make the choice, make a better choice that fits the aim of the direction that I want to head, which is a spiritual towards God relationship. So I would say Tommy John had a huge impact on me. So that was a big reason for my growth journey, and that's where we kind of started our meaningful conversations.
Can you say that last part again? The like the last thing you're saying?
What
Like the what you
were
meant, like what your growth meant, like what it like what you think it actually like means. What you just said, like
um
you're what were you just saying like 30 seconds ago?
like the ability to accept failure, step away from the emotion of that failure, learn
Yeah.
from my mistakes, and then be prepared to make a better choice that fits the aim that I currently have.
Yes, that's like the classic fail, step back, realize why you failed, and then like analyze and then move forward. I
So I
like that.
like, yeah, I would say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again. And when I was younger, going
Yeah.
through my college days, I did that a lot. I made the same mistakes over and over and over again, and that's something that I'm trying to alleviate from my life currently. And I hope I'm doing a better job, you know.
One can only
So
hope. That's all we can do.
where did your journey for personal growth start?
I mean, I was in a tough spot in college, dealing with a lot of injury, a lot of just failures and setbacks, and losing my sense of purpose, my sense of self, and everything was tied to baseball. Everything was tied to that version of me. And when I lost that version of me, I felt like I lost myself. And part of me knew that was wrong. Part of me that it just didn't feel. I just felt wrong. I didn't feel like myself. Um, and all COVID happened and like that. And then when I signed with the Cardinals, my first spring training, I just I just knew I wasn't on the right path. I don't know. Something in me was just telling me. It was just like, you got to figure something out. This isn't it. This isn't it. What you're doing isn't right. I was having success in the field in spring training. I was doing well, um, but I just didn't feel like I didn't feel right. I felt like I couldn't wait for it to be over rather than enjoying the actual process. I couldn't wait for it to actually end in terms of the day, in terms of the stress of leading up to my outing. Like it just wasn't right. So I reached out to our medical coordinator and asked if there was someone that I could work with in terms of mental strength, mental issues. I don't know what we call it, a psychologist, call it a mental coach, call it whatever the hell you want to call it. I needed help. And so I sat down with him and I just told him basically what the deal was. And I mean, first off, I appreciate him, Keith Joynt. I appreciate him. He appreciated me for just coming out and seeking it. Um, and that's something that definitely I grew a little bit in college with regards to that. I don't think I would have done that. So being a little more forthcoming with it helped me a lot. But then I got introduced to Brian Alzawi, who changed my life. He's a mental coach at the Cardinals. I believe he's still there. He's ex-Navy SEAL. And one of the main questions, the first conversation I ever had with him, he asked me, he's like, "What's your routine on the field?" And I had it like the back of my hand. I knew exactly what I needed to do just to be able to go out there and be me. He's like, "All right, well, what's your routine off the field?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" Like, well, what's your routine off the field? What do you do off the field? What makes you you? I was like, I don't have one. Like, well, how do you expect to be consistent off the field in terms of how you feel and mentally and what you feel about yourself and who you are if you're not going to have a consistent routine? So that really struck me because I'm so routine oriented with regard to sport, with regard to my profession, but I wasn't willing to do that for myself, and that changed everything. Just that mindset, and then of course we can go down the gauntlet of things that actually I applied, but
Well,
what
I
triggered
I
it
got a
was just
couple.
that.
Oh. I got a
you
couple
know?
questions or a question. So like to me, I see you as extremely disciplined. Like as far as sticking to something, like once you start it, you go get it. And that's something that I don't do to the fullest of my ability. So I would like to ask you, like, when you starting that new routine off the field, like what made you stick with the things that you were starting to do? Like, was there a point where you're like, man, that really helped, or were you just like, I'm gonna do this for so long, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
So when you're at any point in your life, one of the titles we're gonna maybe make this podcast is called the Eternal Game. Eternal Game defined is basically the battle between good and evil on a playing field of chaos and order. So that's basically life. That's the journey you're on, balancing those things on the playing field of what I just said. So when you find yourself in a situation of just complete chaos, which I was, it really doesn't matter what you do. Creating some order is gonna help you. And if you're like I said, if you're seeking the right thing, you're gonna funnel out the things that are BS, things that you don't need, and that's part of growth. But to answer your question, I just started doing something. He introduced me to meditation. I love the way it made me feel. So I decided I'm going to start this every morning. Um, I started meditating every single morning. I was reading a book at the time my buddy introduced me to. The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. That was like the first, like, it's a fable. I would say it's a pretty intro book to, the mental mindset and work and stuff like that. But there's a exercise in there called the Heart of the Rose. And, in there it's, he like there's this big field of roses and he picks a rose and he just like stares at the rose. It's a very, abstract way of looking at it. But what I did was I literally got pictures of roses on my phone. And you know how I am. I'd rather just be actual a rose, but I got a picture of a rose because I even have roses just floating around in Palm Beach, Florida. But I just stared at a rose for 10 minutes. And what that was, even though as it may sound silly, that was my way of working on focus. Because for me, with my performance anxiety at the time, when I got out there, I felt like my mind would just start going over places. I needed to train it to be in one place. Well, that was my way of training it. So I started doing stuff like that. And I just sold out for those things every single day. And you sell out for order. And if chaos is here and order is here, right, you have to sell out for the opposite. And then once you get to there and you sell, and I mean, it takes time. Once you get there, then you slowly incorporate a little chaos and maintain the person you created. But there's time and there's so much that's in between. But I would say that discipline, it came from just my background. Like I guess it's always who I've been. Both my parents are ex-professional athletes. My dad, is very, very, very strict in terms of routine and how how he taught me how to go about life and how to go about sports, especially. So that transition in terms of working on something was pretty easy in terms of having some type of discipline because that's just what I know. But especially when I found that it worked, I found that it really helped me. I think you got to be some type of silly to find something that really helps you, makes you better, and then you just say, I'm good. I've gotten to the point where I'm good. It's like, that's not how I am. It's like, if it works, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to refine it, of course. I'm going to try keep seeking things that are helping me, but I'm not just going to stop. It's just basically giving up on yourself. And I'll never give up on myself. So I'm going to keep working and keep making myself the best version of myself I could possibly make myself. And that's just routine. And so those little things just started and they just kept going because I kept feeling an improvement. And through prayer and things like that, my mental coach, he told me, it's like a lot of people find God through meditation. It's a precursor. And that was the case for me. I felt like I got a lot closer with God through meditation. And that alone probably is 99.9% of my growth is through him. So, um, even though I don't consider myself a traditional religious person, I would not be the person I am without God. So that was a big thing for me. But all that I wouldn't have been, those doors wouldn't have been opened if I hadn't just started. I didn't know where it was going to take me. I didn't know these doors that were going to open. And there's things, there have been doors that closed because I purposely closed them. I realized this isn't, no, this isn't gonna keep moving me forward. It may help you in this moment, but it's not gonna help me going forward. That's like the age old saying. It's like this relationship doesn't need to be a permanent relationship. Some relationships are meant to be only a week or a day, or whether it be with a person, whether it be a relationship with an activity, whatever it may be. It's like they're not everything's permanent, but the idea that you're seeking higher, seeking better, that has to be permanent. So I mean, discipline's easy when you know it helps. If you tell anybody it's going to help them, if you tell someone, hey, put $1,000 in the stock market, it's going to go up tomorrow, and you know for certain it's going to go up tomorrow, everyone's going to put it in. The only reason people don't is because, like, well, what if it doesn't work? What if it goes down? What if I lose? Well, then you'll never start. So
Yeah. I like the saying, you say it a lot, especially in our conversations. I don't know if you, I hope you're okay with me saying it. You strive to make yourself or God and yourself proud.
yeah,
And
myself and God
you
proud.
had
That's how I make every decision.
like that's you, yeah, and that's your mantra. And I think that's like a it's the first time I've ever heard somebody use that like phrase and like thinking about it, it really, it aligns with your character and your discipline and a lot of the things that you present to the world.
Yeah, that's everything to me. That's everything. Like everything. Every decision I make, everything I do, whether I be walking on the street, seeing a piece of trash, picking it up, throwing it in the garbage. It's like being someone I'm proud of. And in turn, if I can make God proud, I know I can make myself proud. And if those two things are consistently going, I can look myself in the mirror and be proud of what I see and trust that when I look up, He's proud of me looking down. It's like nothing else anyone else says about me matters. And that was a big thing for me as well, performance anxiety wise. Going out there, being the only person on the field, in the middle of the field, you're like, spotlight's on you. It's like, well, when you only have the two things in mind, making yourself and God proud, no matter how the outing turns out, you're going to find positives. And that changed my life.
And like kind of continuing that a little bit is like the first book I think we read together was The Untethered Soul. And
Yeah,
it was a book
what a
it was a
book.
book about yeah, it's a phenomenal read. And it was more along the spirituality side of life. And it had an impact on me. And I'm thinking right now of like a specific instance, but I know like the conversations that we had, we would go to the beach to watch the sunset, and it would kind of drive our conversations into that like
We're
what
such
if or
romantics.
we are we really are, but I'm just saying like I remember a lot of the times like I that it just was peaceful sitting there. We might not even, it was like that parallel plane where we were both reading the book or one of us was doing one thing, but then we came together either on the ride home or through conversation. And the even if the conversation wasn't about me, it helped me grow. And then whenever I was facing a problem, it would help me grow. And those situations down there, like if I didn't have that like ability, I don't know if I would have gotten the things that I got out of rehab or continue the same like strides forward as I did.
The ability of what?
Like to have those conversations, like to have those hard conversations, the emotional ones or the spiritual ones that like you can't just walk up to a stranger on the street and say like you can't be like I mean I guess you could, but like to get the to the bare bones and the depth and the soul, it's tough, So like we talked about, man, I'm really struggling. I At the time I was like, they're not gonna let me get back to playing. Like I was like, I know this is it for me, And those situations were hard, and I had to find a way, even though it wasn't today that they were cutting me. It was in the future. I couldn't do anything about it, but I had to sit down and find a way to get better that day, and that was
Mm.
through reading and through writing and through like these type of conversations. Like without those, I don't know if I am the man that I am today.
No, I mean, I'm honored that's the case, that it played that big of a role in your development and maturation. So, I mean, it played a significant role in myself as well. But I'm glad that it helped you. But I think that it helped the way it did for both of us because we both were seeking the same thing. I don't think it would have been the same thing if we had been on different journeys, or I suppose everyone's on the same journey, you'd hope, but at least seeking the same thing. We're seeking something higher than ourselves, and we're humble enough to actually admit that, you know. I think we wouldn't have gotten the same thing out of it if that weren't the case. Because there's plenty of people we met that are good people, but aren't on that path. Doesn't mean they're bad people. It just means that you kind of know what you're going to get in terms of ceiling, because there is a ceiling. You want the relationships that there is no ceiling. So,
Can I tell one of my favorite stories?
you're not gonna ask me. This is
Okay.
Zach's studio.
Okay. Anyway, so I don't know. This is a couple months into it, and we're arguing about two things. I believed at the
Oh
time
God.
that you could change the weather with your mind, and Luca was
Uh,
like, you can control your thoughts, and we both disagreed with each other. And that was the basis of a lot of our conversations. And I mean, I wouldn't say they got heated, but they did. They definitely had some emotional undertone. But anyway, so we're on our way to the beach. We're having a great day or whatever, and I bring it up. I was like, "Yo, we can change the weather with our mind." And Luca wasn't having it. It was like one of those days. He's like, "I just don't. I'm not dealing with this." And he kind of like. It was a quieter car ride, some soft tunes in the background, probably some house music, and we get done with the beach and it is a downpour, like torrential, like South Florida. It's, it's pouring. I don't even know how, like, it's dumping buckets of rain. And
oh, this
he
is that
goes,
story. I forgot about that.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you were going through some stuff, and we are like, honestly, the conversation we had was phenomenal. And we were just talking about like you had a lot of turmoil and like a lot of like contracting ideas within yourself that we were going through, and you get out of the car, you're like, dude, I want to just run and dance in the rain. And we're driving that Mitsubishi Mirage, and where I'm like,
Yeah.
yo, like anything for this car to stop moving on this highway,
It's gonna
I'm
start
cool with.
floating.
Yeah, yeah, we were already wet. It didn't really matter. So he pulls off into this parking lot, and he gets out, and it's pouring. It's like the windshield wipers aren't even keeping up. And this man just jumps out the car and starts dancing in the rain. And I'm like, I was so content sitting in that chair, letting that man have his moment. I don't know what it is, but I'll never forget that moment in my life because like, it was phenomenal. It was so fun to watch because like when we started our journey down there, I would say you were sad or you were like in a down state, and then like at like the moment you decided that you were gonna stop the car and dance in the rain, your entire like energy lifted up and like you let go of everything that was like you were holding on to. And I was like, this is incredible. Like this is so fun to just be a part of. Like I didn't have to go out there and dance in the rain with you, but like I was there. It was amazing. I don't know. I loved it.
Yeah,
I loved it.
yeah. It was in a Hertz corporate building parking lot, and there was a big grass area to the side. Yeah, I remember that. I remember
So
that.
like yeah, you don't have to take me through the instances, but what led to you like letting go, or like what was that like? Because that's a big part of the growth journey is letting go of the things that hold us back.
Mhm. Honestly, letting go, I think that's always something I'm gonna have a struggle with. 'Cause my memories, I don't know if this is to a fault. My memory is too good, and I mean that in the most humble way possible. Like my memory is very, very good. So when something happens, I remember it. And there's people say, and I actually just saw a video of it about it yesterday, or not yesterday, a few days ago. Elon Musk was saying it. It's like if you really want to remember something, you have to have a tie to you. You have to figure out why it has importance to you, you know? So most of the time, if something emotionally happens, like it hits you, it matters. And so if my memory, let's say, is good at just like reading something, right? Like it's going to be amplified for something that actually I have some type of emotion towards or connected to. So yeah, letting go has always been a tough one for me. Um, but that's where living in the moment and just trusting God's plan and trusting that as long as I can be my best self in this moment, the things in the future will come the way they need to. Like everything's led me to here, and I trust that. One of the main things we've talked about as well is it's not so much being your best self, yeah, but it's constantly doing something you're not going to basically regret, or I'm not. A lot of people don't believe in karma. Call it karma, call it God punishing you, whatever you want to call it. It's like I feel like if you constantly are living in a way where you're focusing on making yourself proud, making God proud, yes, but you're also doing something, living in a way to where you don't do anything to earn the negative, to earn the backlash, to earn the karma, to earn that bad thing happening to you, then you free yourself from a lot of things. You free yourself from just bad things happening to you and your mind going, oh, it's more so it's like, well, I did nothing to earn this, to deserve this. So that means it needed to happen. Let's move forward with it. I'm going to learn from this. I'm going to figure out why this needed to happen. And if that's your aim, more likely than not, if you're willing, first off, if you're willing to look yourself in the mirror, and if you're willing to do that, then you'll figure out why that happened. Instead of like, oh, this sucks. The person, like, screw that person, or this is bullshit, or so and so, whatever. It's like, you know, if you live in a way where it's you trust in every moment you're doing the right thing, it's like when those negative things happen, they're not a negative thing anymore. Now it's just this needed to happen. And it helps you detach and just continue on moving forward after, of course, after you learn from it. But detaching and like letting go for me that day, that story, I remember it like it was yesterday, really. And you sitting here, with your balled up in the passenger seat, asking me to pull over because you were so scared. And I was like, dude, come on now, we're both grown men, relax. But like I don't know, I remember that day, and I just wanted to go out and just, I don't know, enjoy it. I don't know why. I had this inkling to go out and just run around in the rain, and I'm glad I did. And rain has this thing with me. I love it. But yeah, I don't think for me it wasn't like I was letting go in that moment. I understand that's maybe how it seemed. Maybe it was happening. I'm not sure. I was just very just in the moment, content and just like happy. I was really happy at that point in my life, even though like everything, let's say, around me to the person looking like out from the outside was like, well, what do you have to be happy about? If you just sign up with the Twins and you're already on the injured list, you're basically your year's over. I was like, there's a good chance that I need the surgery, and I knew there was probably a very negative chance that I was going to actually go through with that surgery based off the surgeries I've had in the past and everything. So, in which case my career was on the line. I don't know. I just didn't feel that. I was just happy, and
So, oh, go ahead,
yeah,
go ahead.
no, I was happy. I am happy.
Well, I was just gonna dive into that like a little bit is like what brought about the presence or the ability for you to be content in those moments? Like what was it about those moments that we've shared together that allowed for such like joy to just pour out of us? You get what does my question make
Yeah,
sense?
no, it makes perfect sense. I really think everything stems back to the self to a certain extent. I know people will say, I've learned this from Jordan Peterson. It's like thinking of yourself is a direct correlation to being unhappy. It's like the more you think of yourself, the more you have the more chance you have to being nihilistic. It's like they're together. But thinking this, when I say that, I don't mean it so much like judging yourself, criticizing yourself. And even though I feel like we've had there discussions about that, I do think there's place for that. You have to show yourself who's in charge, in my opinion. But um, what does it look like for you? What does it look like?
I would say like the most happy I've been is when there is like a, a letting go and an inviting of the moment. Like on you're prepared for the next thing to happen, but you're not like it feels like that moment stretch out forever. Like so whether that be like a 5 minute or a 2 minute date, it feels like it's longer. And then all of a sudden, like when you look back on it, it feels like a split second. So then you're like, and contrary to that is like when I'm in a like a sad, or I look back and I'm like, man, that was so short, or it felt so long to be in those moments because I was in pain, or I was in like in those joyous moments, like I let go and I succumbed to the moment. Like I was completely present in everything that I was doing. Like I wasn't worried about anything else than the action that was simply in front of me. Like it's like that simple act of I'm here right now, and nothing else matters, even because I've taken care of everything else. Whereas in like my past, like not everything was taken care of, so I had anxiety about calling my
Hmm.
parents. But I like, or
Yeah.
like I was on the road a lot, or I had anxiety about, oh, I didn't get that assignment done, or like instead, like in those moments of pure joy, everything was taken care of. So then I could fully envelop myself into whatever was happening. And at that time, like when we first met, like I had an apartment there, and like I was going to the Sunset. I mean, if not twice a week, maybe three times a week, maybe excessive, but it was like my peace. It was like the drive to get there was peaceful. Those 30 minutes before and after the sunset of either diving into the waves, or spending time at the beach, like that was my connection with him, God. Like that's where like my most real conversations, whether I was with people or not with people, were happening.
Absolutely.
And and I wasn't when I was there, I would leave my phone away. I would take my Kindle, or I would take this like a little ball to play with, or I wouldn't bring anything. And it was like, I don't know, it was life changing for the simple fact is I didn't need anything. Everything was taken care of. I wasn't worried about what's next. I wasn't worried about what happened. Like maybe I had a bad day at work, but it didn't matter. It didn't matter that rehab sucked. It didn't matter that my whole body hurt, because I was gonna sit my booty in the sand, and I was gonna watch the most beautiful sunset on the west side of Florida.
Yeah,
I was
I can
and
resonate with that a lot.
you know,
I resonate with that a
so
lot.
like,
Yeah.
and I would like to be better about it now, moving away from it. I don't want to say it's something that I've lost, but it's a practice that I haven't been practicing. Like,
Why?
I don't know. I I think the environment changed, and I just need to change the way I look at it. Like now, this is me thinking out loud, like off the shoot. Like I'm here at home, and what home provides is the most amazing starlights, or like just looking up, laying in the grass and looking at the stars. So like I need to change the way I view it, and take in those 5 to 10, 25 minutes, whatever I apply. And instead of the sunset, now I'm stargazing, and taking in God's masterful creation, and just speaking with him and being at peace there. So honestly, this conversation just helped me get better right there, because it's not something I've thought about before till right then.
Yeah.
You
No,
know what I mean?
I think what you said before about basically everything being taken care of, that's a big one. People don't realize how much they're holding on to until they're not. You know, off the top of my head, I'm drawing a blank. There's a Sanskrit word that meant just this. We learned in Untethered Soul. Oh man. Oh, it's not gonna. It meant just this, basically what your heart was holding on to, just like things. And when you felt it, just let go. Um, and that's basically what if you had to give like that book like one or two like a 2 3 word synopsis, letting go would probably be one of them. That book was big on just letting go,
Yes.
and I think that tied back to your original question about like where that contentness came from, or I don't know if that was the right word, but just like that happiness is like I really did feel like everything in my corner was in a good place. Obviously, the mentals felt like they were good. They were good. And it was just my life was in a good place, and that allowed me to have a lot of freedom. And going off of what you said as well, you know, I think that a lot of that freedom comes from the idea that if you're doing everything now to make yourself proud, to make God proud, I'm just going to say it over and over again. It's like you trust that that's going to take care of later, the future. The future will be taken care of as long as you take care of now. The past is the past. And if you're doing everything in your power to make sure that the things that happened in the past needed to happen, then there's a definitive line in your past where it's like, all right, you're making a decision to live right, do the right thing, make yourself proud. Once you get past that line, the past is really irrelevant because no matter what happens, it's like it needed to happen and you could trust that. So essentially, as long as you get over that line and everything behind that line you can truly let go of, well, then what's there to worry about from the past? The reason you think about someone in the past is if you're embarrassed, or if you know you weren't happy with yourself, you thought that you were, let's say, a shitty person, or you could have acted better, and this and that, and those things very well might still happen, but you'll be in a better place to address it, and you'll address it fast. That's the thing, and you address it, you learn from it, and you move on. But then that's it. It happened for a reason, and you keep going. And like, I feel like at my point in my life at that time, and still really, it's like I trust that what I'm doing now will take care of later, and what's brought me to be here now was the past. And so then it just leaves you with here, now, where your feet are, making the most of now. Because if you want the future to be good, it's like, well, you only have now to make it better. And now you have now. And then a few seconds later, you have now. So if you treat it every moment, well, you have a lot of moments in a day. You have 60 seconds in a minute, and you have 60 minutes in an hour, and you have 24 hours. It's like you have a lot of moments. And it'd be obviously naive to think that you can truly, be so laser focused on every moment. We're all human, of course, to a certain extent, but the difference between the ones that are successful in terms of, the psyche and, getting themselves to a higher place, it's like, well, they take advantage of more moments. I think that boils down to just that, you know? And yeah, I think that allowed a lot of freedom for me to be happy because I didn't feel like I was holding on to anything. Like the age-old saying that Jordan Peterson loves to say, it's like, clean your room before you criticize the world. Put your room in order before you criticize the world. And of course, you can take it as a literal sense and have a clean room, which you can see mine's very clean, or you can have the room be in your head, your internal garden. You know, pick the weeds out, and
Okay.
you know,
Okay. So a tool, like, yes, I hear you. I'm with you. Something that I kind of wanted to bring up, kind of for like like that, I don't know how to say this. It helped me, but it's also a tool to that letting go aspect, especially for me. And it might not work for everybody, but writing. And I
hmm
know that you journal, and like I started journaling, and I'm still journaling. I journal every day, but it's just like, how does letting go and how does writing coincide with clearing out your head?
oh my God, you'd be naive to think that it doesn't.
But
Um,
those people that
yeah,
don't have that experience,
absolutely,
or
absolutely.
don't go after it.
Well, that's part of the discipline. A lot of people will say, I don't have time. I get home from work, I'm tired. Okay, are you too tired for yourself? Or are you tired to write? There's a difference. If writing was just an act of writing, it's like, oh, who cares? But it's not just writing. It's for yourself. It's to let go of the things you need to let go of that day. And if you're too tired for that, then you're too tired for your own betterment. And if that's the case, then no one can help you. So like for me, writing initially started because I train myself. If you talk to my girlfriend, she still says that I have things to work on in this regard. So I'm not saying she's wrong. But thinking negatively, um, it's something that like I had to work on. And it's not like I was sitting there thinking negatively always about myself or like it was just I had this level of like I saw something and it was just I thought of the negative to it, and you could say it's like, well, it's more of a defense mechanism. Well, whatever you want to look at it. I didn't see it as serving me a purpose. So journaling really started as a positivity journal, which I learned in Chop Wood Carry Water. Actually, that was the book I read after the basically another fable after I read The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. So this is way back when. This is back in spring of 2023. My first spring training with the Cardinals, or I'm sorry, spring of 2021. Um, and basically, the positivity journal is just you have your growth mindset, you have your growth statement, and then you have at least 15 positives you write for the day. And then once you come up with that, you have two things you need to work on, and you have one thing you learned. And that template is what I've followed every single night. And of course, there's you can I alter it sometimes. You know, if there's things I actually need to start writing, I'll just start writing. And but I'll always have the mindset of like writing down my positives because I need to constantly train myself to think the positive while they're happening. And now I find myself where it's like the positive happens and I note it because I can't wait to go write it. And that writing is solidifies it. And the writing journaling was a huge, huge thing for me. I wouldn't be the person I am if I wasn't journaling every night. You know, every single night. I'm tired, my eyes are closing, I'm journaling because it's truly to me, it's the act of letting go. And once I'm done journaling, it's like that day's over. I read, I chill, I go right to bed. Um, we have a long ways to go in this podcast, so we're gonna venture down a lot of different topics. Sleeping be one of them. It's like I was a horrible sleeper, horrible, and now I'm proud. Knock on wood, thank you to God. Like I'm better at sleeping. It's an art. It's a craft. It's not something that you take it for granted. Some people do take it for granted because they're very good at it. I'm not. I wasn't, and it's something that I work for. And journaling be one of those things that I feel like I earn my sleep. And yeah, it's changed everything. And of course, it's not just a bedtime thing. I'm sure for you, it's basically for me, and I can't imagine it's different for anybody. It's like it's a way of thinking out loud, and if you want to think about it, it's fine. But there's also a reason why talking to someone is so beneficial. That's why everyone's not can't just figure things out while just thinking on their own. When you write something out, it almost makes it real, and you can realize pretty fast if while you're writing, it's like, oh, this is silly, or oh, this is dumb, or oh, this is good, or I don't know, oh, that's a good idea. Or like when you write it out, it just becomes real, and it's a conversation with yourself, really. And I've used it as a tool. That's really writing is not anything but a tool to me. It's a tool for my growth. It's my own selfish way of using that pen and paper to help myself, you know. And I'm sure what has it done to you? I know you went out and you bought some fancy pen and you reload that thing and you go buy ink. I mean, you're a little more invested in the art of it than I am. But what is it to you?
Well, yeah, you're right. Honestly, writing is one of the things that has captured my soul in a lot of different ways. Um, but to begin with, I didn't write, and when Tommy John happened, I was the twins. Honestly, had a great setup in rehab, and I would talk to a mental skills person once a month, even maybe more frequently, depending on the time that she was there. And she used to be like, Neff, write, like write. And I've always had to do things my way, I guess.
Mm.
So yeah, I know. A little bullish, I know. So it took a little bit, and she gave me a journal, and she gave me a pen, and I started writing a little bit. And not frequently, not consistently, but there were things that were happening, and all of a sudden I would write something and then I would feel better, like you said. But my stick to itness, it wasn't as yours was. Like mine wasn't every day. Mine was, I don't mean, 2, 3 times a week. And so then I started adding reading to it. And then like the combination of reading and writing took off during rehab. And so then it became a consistent habit. And it led me to a lot of things. And when I got out of rehab and I got released and I got sent to York, I walked past this pen shop and I didn't know anything about fountain pens. I'd been looking for a pen for a long time, and I don't know. I'm not going to say this out loud, but it was a neat experience, and she taught me a new thing about pens, and I bought a cheap one, and I wrote every day from there on out till the end of the season. And all of a sudden, at the end of the season, I was like, I'm not done yet. Like I was like, I have more to learn. I have more to like feel and create. But like the thing about writing is it kind of created this mantra of the art of slowing down for me. So like I could feel when I was tense because I would hold the pen tense. I could feel when I was relaxed in the flow state and I could just write forever. And then so it was like a way for me to feel my emotions, have a conversation with myself about what I was feeling. And now it's all come to life just on this piece of paper between me and myself. And like, even though I wasn't talking to you every day, like it was that conversation. It's like,
Hmm.
what did I fail at today? What did I succeed at today? Or maybe it was just the simple words of slow down. And like by the time I got to DONN or WN, like all of a sudden I was writing clearer. I had more clarity. And I don't know, and it's evolved into an everyday thing. Like, and then even this past season, one of my buddies that is a very artistic soul and probably one of my favorite people ever, we crossed paths again. And we're sitting there, we're out at dinner, and he's like, dude, you should write poems. Like we're sharing our writing. And so he challenges me to write poems. And now all of a sudden for the second half of the season, I'm writing poems. And it's just like I get to see my thoughts, I get to see my emotions, and then I stopped writing poems, and it even translates to my regular journey. Now I'm writing with rhythm, I'm writing with rhyme, and like I go back and read it, and I'm amazed at the things that I have come up with, or I share with my parents like the thoughts and the feelings that I'm having while being away, and it's more inclusive to like the situation that I'm in. So I don't know. I'm a big advocate of writing, and I'm giving lessons to little kids now, and not little kids, but I mean middle-aged kids in the baseball life. And the worksheet I give them is write for 5 minutes, like so that I can communicate better with you. And I think it not only am I communicating better with myself now, I'm communicating better with those around me, especially the ones that are like tight knit to me, because I can
So what?
express myself. Go ahead,
Excuse me.
go ahead.
No, excuse me. Sorry, keep going.
I can just express myself in better ways, and that's where I was gonna end. So what's your question?
What do you find? So when they write those things for those 5 minutes, do they come back with a piece of paper and you read it? What do you, or do you ask them to read it to you? What do you find from those readings or writings?
I don't ask anything from them. I just ask them to write so that way when we're going through our lesson, that the communication can be better. So like this past week, I was using the term stay back, stay back, stay back, and it wasn't working. Like it wasn't getting the result that I thought it would get from the kid. And so I was like, so I paused and we were having a conversation, and a new word came to me. I was like, try patience. And so now all of a sudden patience works. And now the kid's more open to communicate with me, and I can have a higher dialogue instead of like I try to meet him where he's at so that I can elevate his game, but or our game specifically. But it just like the communication opens up. Like when they write and they explore themselves or their thoughts and their feelings, then I can have a conversation with them. And I don't even need to know what they wrote. And I don't ask them to see what they wrote. If they want to share, I would love to read, but that's for a different time.
Can you tell if they're doing it or not?
Well, it's in the early stages, so I inconclusive.
Interesting. I like
But
that.
I would say yes. My scientific guess would be yes. Like if I was running an experiment, you gave me 5 kids, I would say I would know who's writing and who's not.
That's very cool. That's
But
interesting. I like
what do you
that.
think about sharing with our like talking about the book a little bit, maybe like an introduction on welcoming them like our audience or something to the book club.
Yeah, welcome to it. Welcome to it. This is initially this is something that Zach and I started to be able to keep touch with each other because we would think about each other all day and we just couldn't talk. So we just we wanted to do something together. Um, but we ended up reading some books, and so we started with 12 Rules for Life, I believe. That was our first. I read that back in 2021 or 2022, but we reread it. Then we
Untethered
read the
Soul was in there.
Untethered Soul. Yeah, I'm sorry, that was the first one we read. And then we read The
That
Extraordinary Mind. Um, we started reading
and
Beyond Order before I started my new job, and things kind of got messed things up a little bit. Um, Now we're reading We Who Wrestle with God. This is a good one. Um, I don't know. I think it's I think the book was just kind of like a precursor to just us having these conversations with ourselves anyways, with each other anyways, I mean. Like it was just a little activity to do during the week or so. Um, but like our conversations aren't really about the whole book, or isn't it really about the book the entire time? So, um, I've really enjoyed it. I think it's fun to, you know, to point out what we think is interesting. It's funny because a lot of times what you highlight, what I highlight, they're really similar, if not the exact same. Like we're on the same wavelength, and what catches our mind. So, um, one thing that I found that I shared with you before, I want to reread um, this past chapter so far. This part really struck me, and similar to what we were talking about before. And it says, if two people serve the same unity, they can work together, sacrifice together, navigate treacherous and difficult terrain together, can cooperate and compete together, and can do so voluntarily, productively, and peacefully. People aiming at the same unified target are psychologically integrated embodiments of the same spirit. This union of the individual and the collective is indistinguishable from the fully socialized maturation. And I think I think for that reason, the idea that Jordan Peterson likes to say is that, not everyone has to be part of the conversation to be part of the conversation. And what that means is if you're listening on the conversation, you're actually intrigued and you're seeking the same things as we are, you're part of the conversation just as much as we are. And I think that's the beauty of it because there's only a certain amount of people that can be on this call, of course, or this podcast, you want to say, but there's an infinite amount of people that can actually be connected to it. And I think as long as you're seeking the same purpose, the same unity, I feel like that relationship, whether it be physical or it be spiritual or it be whatever it is, like it can help us all, and we can all be part of it. So, I mean, what do you want to discuss about the book or about this week, or if you want to say anything about the book club per se and what it does to you? I don't know. What do you think?
yeah, I have a lot of thoughts, but I would just first like to invite anybody that wants to join and read with us. We read like a chapter a week, and it's nothing crazy, it's nothing long or anything, but it just gives us something to find a mutual ground or something to bring a topic to. So like it's and it promotes a lot of questions. So it's more of an invite to join us and ask us questions or something that you guys want us to talk about or have questions yourself. So like that's honestly my vision for the little book club. But yeah, this week's chapter, I honestly, what are we on, three?
Hmm.
I only highlighted one thing, and it was this. It's Peterson, and he's talking about the story of Job. He goes, "Why would God throw Job, or any of us, into the ring, even with the devil himself?" And his answer to that is, "Because he is confident in our victory. Who, then, is God? The spirit within us that is eternally confident in our victory. This is another indication of what is to be properly and necessarily put in the highest place. Another characterization of the ultimate unity, another definition of God." And the reason I like that is a lot of people, or a lot of the people I've talked to about God or spirituality, or is like they think he's like outside of us. And I've always had the thought, or lately have had the thought, that he's inside of us. He's within. Like, because when I do something bad, I know it's bad. I can feel that guilt almost before I do it.
Why?
So like, because I honestly, I think because of the fall of Adam and Eve, and that, like, without getting it too deep into it, like that tree of knowledge of knowing between good and evil, I think like it's bad. So it's like, and then like that within us, it's like he also talks about that confidence. It's like when you, there's guys that I like know that are deeply religious, they walk with that different like air or different breath. They're like so confident from within, and it's great. It's similar to you, or if not you, and like they just walk like lightly on their feet, and it just exudes out of them that he is the presence and the breath of life. And it's not something to not be confident in. And I think for me, I wasn't confident in it because I was partaking in a lot of activities that weren't deemed good, especially by my inner judgment. So I don't think God would be proud of that if I personally, an imperfect human, doesn't think it's good. So that's why it spoke to me there is like he was kind of relating to that it was on the inside, and I deeply related to that statement right there.
I like that. I like the story of Job. I'm not gonna say I'm like a big Bible guy, but I've never actually read it. Let's say word to word from start to finish in the Bible, but I've heard countless things. Jordan Peterson loves both, loves Job, so I uh, I love the story, especially the way he talks about it. But one thing that I highlighted a lot, but one thing that I kind of got towards the back, and I didn't finish the entire chapter. I was slacking this past week and a half or so. Work's been crazy, but
As I
um,
just applauded your discipline.
well, we can talk about that. But yeah, so um, one of the things that really struck with me was if you do well, won't you be accepted? But if you don't do well, sin is lying outside the door, ready to attack. It wants to control you, but you must master it. And the way I read that really was sin being your mind. We've talked about this in the past of we've talked about this where it's like I have this perception of there's three entities within us. It's like our mind, our bodies, and ourself, who we are. And I kind of came to that conclusion reading Untethered Soul when he was talking about basically our internal being, like our consciousness is like kind of sitting in the middle of our brain, right down there, um, and like just watching. And that's how I picture the self being, and like the mind I see as a negative. And so when I read that and I saw like sin's always waiting, I read it as that. And I said before, it's like you have to prove to yourself who's in control. I think it's just for that reason. You need to show yourself who's in control of yourself, of your body, of your mind, of everything. And until you do that, I don't feel like you're ever truly free. And we can get into a lot of things with regards to the prisoner's phase and all these things that we've spoken about and Jordan Peterson loves to talk about and all these things. But essentially, it just boils down to like you proving to yourself that you're in charge, proving yourself that you're capable of being free. Because being free comes with a lot of responsibility, a lot. And if you're not ready for it, you're gonna give in to hedonism. You're gonna give in to all these different things that are only normal for humans to give into. But if you know who's in charge, who's the master of your own mind, you truly are free, and I think that's the precursor to happiness. So yeah, that quote stuck with me. I thought the up to where I read, I thought there's a lot of great things. I'm gonna continue reading. I'm gonna finish the chapter by Sunday. So technically our thing is for the week. So Sunday will, even though Sunday is the start of the week, I'll finish it by Sunday and we'll be on the right track. But yes, I I did like a little bit of discipline with regard to reading. Um, I chose journaling over reading, so I guess it is what it is.
We'll cut you some grace, all right? We'll give you some love and some passion, you know.
That's all I could ask for. But yeah, this is fun. I like this. This is basically exactly this. This felt no different than what we do on a daily basis, weekly basis. And if anyone ever decides to actually listen, I hope they just feel what we're striving for, really.
Yeah, and that's our whole thing is just to share our relationship and our conversations with the world, really, and see what comes out with it. And, you know, if you could help us by helping us grow, that would be lovely as well. So if we helped you, please pass it on and ask questions. And that's probably going to be, as going forward, that's probably going to be one of our more fun segments is interacting with our audience, I think.
I agree. I agree.
So I think we're right on cue. We're right where we need to be, and we'll end with that.
Yeah, it was a pleasure.
As always, sir, peace.
Have a good day.